Saint Lucia, mama, that's the land of my birth.
Bonjour tout le monde, jodi a c'est vendredi, il disait, et puis temps pour conversation en cabaret. Good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m. and it is time for Rum Shop Talks. Today we were supposed to have a guest, but unfortunately it seems like my guest can't make it. So you guys are stuck talking to me. Just freestyle this here today. One of the things I actually wanted to point out and to really discuss is I wanted to bring light to the volcanic eruptions that are currently occurring in the island of St. Vincent. So St. Vincent is located directly south of St. Lucia, and last week suffered a volcanic eruption. A volcano that had been dormant forever, La Soufrière, erupted. And interestingly enough, the volcano has continued to erupt. What has that caused? It has displaced thousands of people who were living in what is considered the red zone, which is the area directly close to the volcanic eruptions. These people are having to had to either leave the island or be placed in shelters. And there's so much going on in the media right now, but we haven't been really seeing much media focused on this. These people in St. Vincent, they need help. You know, it's like you guys can imagine anytime we have natural disasters, there's inevitably the need for assistance, whether that is financial assistance, whether that is providing the basic necessities. And I know that there's a lot of places out there right now, not-for-profit organizations, and just people who are boots on the ground or have boots on the ground who are looking to raise funds. If you are interested in supporting, I know that last week I posted a link on my Facebook with which is a link to donate, and I encourage you guys to look up not-for-profit organizations that are collecting I can hang it up over here. Who are funds to benefit people who are negatively affected by the volcanic eruption. And like I said, the volcano has continued to erupt, and so this is not a one-time thing. This is a continuing threat to the island. And not only is the island of St. Vincent affected, but also the islands that are west of it. So that the west of east of St. Vincent, my bad, is Barbados. And so Barbados is being affected by the ash, and of course parts of St. Lucia as well are being affected by the ash. So like I said, look it up. If you guys are in a position to donate, find an organization and donate, because these people are in desperate need about it. And so I figured I'd take a few minutes today to inform my viewers on this most pressing issue. And it seems like we have our guest on here. Today we are going to be talking to Quinn Connolly. Quinn is owner of Life Insurance, and they do life insurance as well as Medicare. Quinn is actually my go-to for all things life insurance. And in my practice, you guys know I'm constantly talking about life insurance, constantly talking about the importance of life insurance, but also with my clientele, I have a fair amount of clients who are in the age of applying for Medicare. And so I'm always happy to bring someone on board, an expert who can talk about the things that I could tell you I know very little about. So Quinn, welcome, and why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers? Hey Quinn, we see you, but we can't hear you. Okay, I don't know what happened. We might be having some technical difficulties. Okay, so here's the cool thing about Quinn's company and Copious Insurance. One of the things that they do is they actually counsel people who are 65 and older who are applying for Medicare, and even people who are reapplying for Medicare. They counsel them and try to find them the best Medicare coverage out there. One of the things that Quinn talks about is that too often individuals who are applying for Medicare take the advice of their friends and neighbors and enroll in plans that do not serve them, do not serve their needs, do not cover their doctors, do not cover their um, their medications. And those are all the things that are important if you are in that age range. And let's be honest, if you know anyone who's, you know, 65 and older and have health insurance, it's very important to have continuity of care. So you want to make sure that all your doctors are covered under your insurance. You don't want to start at 65 on your doctor. So I think it's very important to do that and to not go go through the process alone. And what's really cool is that people think, well, I don't want to hire someone because I'm going to have to pay that person. And Copious Insurance does not charge you for Medicare counsel because they're charged by the state. And so you can actually have a professional help you with applying for the correct plan and have it cost you nothing to that person. So instead of going alone and getting messed for a year until the next open enrollment, I recommend you give a call to Quinn Connolly of Copious Insurance. Hopefully we can get him back on here and he can tell you all about what he does. um, hey Quinn, are you there? Can you hear us? Are you? Hey Quinn.
Hi, I'm so sorry, everyone.
Hey,
That's
there you are.
I didn't feed the hamsters on the internet this morning, so I had to switch computers here. So I do apologize for that.
Oh, no worries at all. I think I've done a fantastic job of just talking while we waited for you to come on. So I've already
Great.
introduced you, and why don't you tell us about Copious Insurance? I figured we'd do a little bit about Medicare and then also talk about life insurance, the importance of life insurance, and some of the products that you guys offer. So why don't you introduce yourself and then we can kind of get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jan. So yeah, we're an independent insurance agency, and we help people sort out health, Medicare, life, disability, and long-term care. And we have a real focus on Medicare because it is confusing and sometimes overwhelming to people. It is a benefit you've paid for your whole life through your paychecks, and we want to make sure people maximize it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, as well as confusing elements, and there's a lot of competitive elements as well. So there's a lot of different products and carriers. So what we do is we individualize the approach based on your needs. We find out who your doctors are, what meds are you on, do you travel a lot, what's important to you, and then we can recommend a product from there. One of the things that I love about what we do is we're paid by the insurance carrier. We do not charge any fees. So we'll help you on the front end, streamline the process, and then we're your advocate for the life of the policy, and it doesn't cost you any extra money. And with the word copious in itself, we have an abundance of products. We will put you in whatever's in your best interest. So we have no vested interest in putting you with a particular carrier or product, but whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I think that's like very important.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the key. It's very individualized. One of the challenges I have is people will take information from their friend, their doctor, their neighbor, their brother or sister, and they mean well, but in reality, they don't really understand how Medicare works. And you'll have somebody that has one doctor, no medical needs, no meds, and an HMO plan works great for them. They recommend it to their brother, who's diabetic, has 7 doctors, 20 meds, travels all the time, and they mean well by saying, hey, my plan's great, but just because it works for your brother does not mean it's going to fit your individual needs. So it is a case-by-case, one-by-one individualized process where we are looking at your specific needs and then finding the right product for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for really like going through that process, because I think that is very important for people to know. At first, there is no cost to them, because I think that's a concern for a lot of people. Like, what's this going to cost me if I have an expert help me? And also to really lay out the fact that it is an individualized process, and you should approach it from an individualized place, because it's not a one size fit all. I think that very often people approach Medicare from that perspective, but one size fits all. You know, it's like if it works for him, then it works for me too. And I really like that you've
Absolutely.
highlighted that that's not how it works. So at what point would you recommend, someone start the process with you if they're going to be applying for Medicare?
That's a great question. Generally, we are going to want to try to get in touch about 6 months in advance. That's when their names are sold off to whoever sends them this plethora of information from hundreds of carriers, and where they start getting overwhelmed and frustrated and confused. The earliest we can actually do anything would be 3 months out from their 65th birthday. Now, the caveat to that would be people can start before the age of 65 if they have a physical or intellectual disability. That's a different scenario altogether. And if you know somebody who is permanently disabled, that's someone who needs to talk to someone like myself as well, because the plans and the premiums and the products are different for people under the age of 65, and it can get really confusing and costly if you're not lined up correctly. But in general, 3 months out, and that's when we can do an analysis. Living in a very expensive area, a lot of people are not able to retire at 65, and so we'll do a benefit cost analysis for them, whether it makes sense to stay on an employer-based plan or opt into Medicare. It's 100% your choice as an eligible Medicare recipient, whether you want to join at 65 or defer that if you do have creditable coverage, either through yourself or a spouse.
Okay, that's a really good point. That people don't, that it's not a requirement, because I think that a lot of people assume that because I'm 65, I gotta apply to Medicare. So I love that you guys are taking that approach of, hey, if you have an employer plan, let's take a look at that and let's see if it's better for you to stay here or to move over. I absolutely love that. I know that, if a person goes, and I know that people I just applied, I got my Medicare. Are you stuck with the plan that you chose when you turned 65, or do you have the option to get into a different better plan? And what is the timeline for that?
That's a great question. So when you first join Medicare, you'd have essentially a free look period for the first 4 months after the plan starts, where you can change to another carrier, or you could switch from a PPO to an HMO. But after that period, in general, we have an annual open enrollment every year that goes from October 15th to December 7th. And that allows you to transfer plans, change carriers, and so forth for the following year on January 1st. We are seeing extensions in the new year. This past year, we had extensions all the way through March 31st, where carriers were running specials and allowing it. But in general, it would be that October 15th to December 7th. And that's an important question, Jan, because these benefits are changing. There's so much competition out there. Every year we're getting better benefits, and plans are adding dental, vision, hearing, life alert, over-the-counter benefits. And if you've been on a plan for 3 years, 3 years later, there are better plans available, and you want to be able to upgrade to that. And it is, in most cases, guaranteed issue. So you could just transfer over and join that new plan and enjoy the new benefits that are more robust than what was available when you originally signed up.
That's awesome. So if you were advising someone who has a plan, would you recommend that they every year have their plan looked at to see if it's still working for them? Or is it because with estate planning, we say every 5 to 10 years, pull your plan out, take a look at it, see if it still works for you, and then make changes if necessary. What is your timeline with regard to Medicare coverage?
Generally, that's a great question. Generally, if no changes have occurred, if you don't have new doctors, if you've not started new prescriptions in the middle of the year, you can look at it every couple of years. If you have changes, all of a sudden you have a new specialist you need to see, we need to evaluate that. Excuse me. If you now on new prescriptions that you were not on the year before, we definitely want to evaluate that. We see the largest fluctuation annually on prescription copays. And so the majority of my clients will call me during that annual open enrollment, and we'll just investigate it, because a lot of the carriers will offer prescriptions at a lower rate to kind of suck people in, and then they jump it up. So if you were paying $5 for a med last year and now it's $20, let's take a look and see if we can find you a better plan for that.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Quinn. Just like I just want to reiterate that open enrollment for Medicare is later on in the year, October through December, right?
Correct. October 15th
through
to December 7th.
All right. So we will make sure that we are highlighting that when we get closer to open enrollment. And I wanted to switch over to life insurance, because I know I have a fair amount of people who are in younger, like myself, and are considering life insurance. And I always tout life insurance as an incredible way to add liquidity to an estate plan. So we're going to switch focus here and talk a little bit about life insurance. Can you tell us what you're seeing right now with regard to policies and costs of policies? I would say in I guess different age ranges. The young family just starting off versus like an older person. And as an expert, what would you recommend? How would you recommend life insurance for an individual?
Yes, absolutely. So we are seeing some trends over the last 5 to 10 years. We're seeing life insurance premiums drop. There's a couple of factors. We have just a competitive element out there, so they're offering better plans. We also see life expectancy growing as medicine gets better, and the way we treat people and just medical care has improved over the last decade, so people are living longer. Life expectancy grows, life insurance premiums drop. Some of the recent elements that we're seeing that are absolutely wonderful are living benefit riders that have been added for no cost that can cover things like disability, long-term care, chronic illnesses, where you can access your death benefit while you're still alive for no additional cost, which is incredible.
Oh, wow.
And then the big one over the last year, Jan, under COVID, I have a lot of carriers that are offering no exam approval. If they check your medical records and everything's clean and your family history and so forth, they'll give you an offer without taking blood, without taking urine, without having to have tech come out. And that's very new in the industry, which is actually wonderful. If somebody's really healthy and clean and they don't want to be exposed to someone they don't know, we're getting people approved with 8+ carriers, high amounts in the millions, without ever even having to go through that lab process.
Oh my gosh, that's really incredible, because I know that the idea of having to go through a medical exam is one of the things that dissuades people from actually wanting to go down the path of just I gotta get someone come in my house and be involved all in my business. So that's pretty incredible. And are they charging more? So if you did not have to get the medical care, are they charging more for those premiums, or are you getting fairly comparable coverage whether you had a medical exam or not?
You're getting the exact same premium and the exact plan rate. Now, it's not being offered to everyone, right? If they check your medical history and there's something that they want to look into further, it's not a guaranteed process, but we submit the application. Some carriers as many as 40%. So it's exciting. And then, there's really no loss. If you don't get the immediate instant offer, then we just go through the process of what a traditional life insurance exam would be.
Okay. So you're not like, completely like out of the process. It's just like, hey, that didn't work, so we have to go through the longer process for getting coverage.
Correct. Yeah, and also, sorry, Jen, to interrupt, but having access to a lot of carriers, if I have a carrier that does not give you the instant offer, I can shop around with somebody else, which gives us the
Okay.
flexibility of having multiple carriers, hundreds of carriers to choose from.
So that is also the benefit of going with an independent broker versus a captive insurance broker, because you have more options for your clients to offer them. So can you
Absolutely.
just like very briefly explain the difference between a term policy and a whole life policy? And when do you recommend one over the other? Or is there even a recommendation of one over the other?
Absolutely. So a term policy is designed to buy insurance for a specific term, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Hopefully you survive that term. If you do not, the carrier is going to compensate your family that amount of life insurance. If you survive that term, which hopefully you do, that policy ends. A term policy is the most affordable option, and they are pretty flexible now with some of those riders that I talked about, the living benefit riders. They're being attached to them, but it's the lowest cost way to get the most bang for your buck. But we also have to look long term. Are you going to need insurance after the 15 or 20 years? And will you be healthy at that point? And will you be insurable? And what will the cost be? So a permanent policy is kind of a mind switch. You are getting life insurance, but you also have a policy that's going to run infinitely as long as you pay until you die. And you put extra money into there above what your term premium would be. That goes into a sub-investment account. So it's a retirement option. It's a tax-free growth option. They are liquid from day one. Whole life is a form of permanent life. There's various types of permanent life. I'm not a fan of whole life. It's really inflexible and kind of expensive. But we have things like indexed life, universal life that are much more flexible. So when somebody's looking at permanent life, they're going to get a lot more for what they're spending, but they have to kind of switch their mindset from just a cost of insurance to this is an additional asset. They're building a tax-free vessel over here that grows just like it would in the stock market. They have access to it liquid from day one. And when they do withdraw it, it's 100% tax-free. So it's a retirement / life insurance. It's a hybrid of the two.
That's awesome. And I think that's a very important distinction to make for people. So I just wanted to like, would you recommend one policy over another based on where you are in your life, or it's like, hey, if you're 30 years old and can afford a permanent policy, go for it. Or if you have a lot of debt and you're just starting off, maybe you look at this policy versus that. Like, I just want to do a little bit of like an analysis about the different policy options and the different times in your life that they might work. One might work better than another.
Absolutely. And that again is an individualized approach. One of the other elements about the term policies I sell, they're all convertible. So if someone is in a situation like you outlined and they have college debt, they're putting a child through college or they're paying off their college, and that extra expense really is something that they don't want to take on, they can get a term policy and they can convert that permanent policy at any point during that term and get their original health rating. So there's kind of an escape plan. When we're going to look at a permanent policy, individualized, that would be somebody who's already maxing out maybe an IRA or a 401k. Sometimes it's a high income individual. They've maxed out their other stuff and they want to invest other money and get a tax break on the back end of it.
Okay.
So it is very individualized. And if I have somebody who at the end of the month only has $100 left over to spend on something, we're going to recommend a term policy at that point. But if I have a business owner that's trying to put some money away, it's not going to be taxable in the end, and kind of balance that out with their pre-tax qualified stuff they're putting away, it's a very good option. And I personally, I've funded my 17. I'm going to fund my 17-year-old's college that way. I opened up a policy at birth, and I put a couple $100 a month in there. I'm going to pull it out, and you don't have to use it for school, but I can. So it's really flexible. And the big thing for me is you could get a life and permanent life policy with the death benefit and have a long-term care or disability rider for less than purchasing a long-term care policy by itself. And this is more flexible. You can access it and have a loved one take care of it. You don't have to get a reimbursement like you would with a long-term care policy. So that's kind of the future. The long-term care is going away, and the life insurance is becoming more versatile and a much more well-rounded asset to explore, to cover various elements that you could be exposed to in the future, including high taxes and long-term care or disability care for a loved one.
That is, thank you so much for that, because I don't think I realized how that, first of all, that long-term care insurance was like, on its way. I know it's like super expensive,
Yeah.
and less people are opting for it because of the cost. But it's amazing that you can now get a permanent policy that has that. So if you have if you already have an existing policy, right, with a company, but at the time the company wasn't offering, those what do you call them again? The
living benefit riders, correct?
The living benefit riders. How do you go about adjusting your policy to now include that? Do you have to cancel and get a new policy, or do you contact a company and they help set you up?
Yeah, we'd have to do a really deep analysis on that. In a lot of cases, for instance, my wife and I just got permanent policies earlier last year that included all these living benefit riders, but I have an old permanent policy that's 20 years old, but it was so inexpensive that we're keeping that one because the cash is really growing and we're buying a new one. So we would have to look at it. Are they insurable? Are they insurable at the same rate they were when they got the old policy? And then we kind of have to do an analysis of whether it makes sense. Because if we're going to get a more versatile new policy, but it's going to cost 5 times more, that's not necessarily the right move for the client.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And one final question with regard to life insurance and age. Is there an age at when you're like, you know what, don't even bother, because the cost of life insurance is going to eclipse the benefit for you? Because I know that, it's like, I never want to recommend for an older client, hey, let's do life insurance let's do life insurance, when that might not make sense from a practical standpoint. So is there an age where you're like, you know what, it's not worth it?
Yeah, I would say just off the cuff that's probably going to be about 75, where anyone above 75, I mean, unless they're just going to get a small burial policy or something like that, it's probably not cost effective. When we're looking at 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, it's incredibly inexpensive to get life insurance if you're healthy. It starts to get a little more late 40s, early 50s. So that's why it's really important, if somebody has an older policy, that we need to, are you going to be 55 or 60 when this term policy ends? Are you still going to need life insurance? If their house is paid off and their kids are out of college, they may not need life insurance after that. But if they need to buy an expensive policy in their late 50s or early 60s, it's going to be expensive. So we would have to do analysis of whether it makes sense or not for them to purchase at that point.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Quinn. This has been amazing. You've answered a lot of questions. Hopefully, you've answered some of the questions of our audience. If I always tell people that if they have any questions, to let us know. And of course, if anyone forwarded any questions, I would happily forward that to you. Quinn, if someone has a question, how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can call me or text me, whatever you're more comfortable with, at 949-310-9984. That's my direct cell phone. Or you can reach me via email at Quinn, which is QUINN, at Copious, kind of a tricky one, COPIOUS lifeinsurance.com. I would be happy to speak to anyone. Sometimes people are going through challenges that's confusing. Some of my happiest clients are people that I could just help through a tough problem, and whether they're signing up with something for me or not, that doesn't matter. I want to help people that are struggling and challenged with trying to figure things out. So if you need help, or someone you know or love, care about needs help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to be a resource for you.
And are you able to serve clients all across the state of across the country, or are there certain states that you're licensed to serve and not not others?
That's another. You're good at this, Jan. I'm licensed throughout all of California, and then on the life and Medicare side, if we have somebody out of California, it's as simple as me paying a fee to get a license in that state. We have a lot of people moving out of California, so currently I am licensed in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Texas, Idaho, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Illinois, and I'm waiting for my next one. So if somebody lives in a state different than that, I would be more than happy to get licensed in that state if I can help them on Medicare or life insurance. Health insurance, I'm not doing that out of state at this point, but anywhere throughout California, I'd be happy to help with that.
All right, awesome. So you guys out here who are in all of those states Quinn mentioned, or in fact, any state in the United States, and you're looking for life insurance or help with Medicare, definitely give Quinn a call. Like I said, Quinn is my go-to for life insurance and Medicare issues. He is also my personal agent. So I'm not recommending something to you guys that I'm not using myself. Thank you so much, Quinn, for coming on and answering our questions. And we will see you guys next week for another episode of Rum Shop Talks. Bye.